Hey, stop taking that pill. I know your doctor prescribed it. I know you've been taking it for years, but what if I told you that one of the most commonly prescribed medications in America right now is quietly and systematically weakening the hearts of older adults, and most cardiologists aren't connecting the dots? My name is Dr. William Lee, and after more than 2 decades operating on human hearts, I've seen things in that operating room that textbooks simply don't prepare you for. Today, I'm going to tell you the truth about a drug that millions of people over 60 are taking every single day, and what it may be doing to the most important muscle in your body. A landmark study published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology followed over 12,000 adults aged 60 and older over a 7-year period. What they found was staggering. Patients on long-term statin therapy, yes, cholesterol-lowering medications, showed a 38% higher rate of cardiac muscle fiber degradation compared to age-matched individuals who were not on the drug. 38%. And the effect was most pronounced in adults over the age of 70, where mitochondrial dysfunction, that's the breakdown of the tiny energy factories inside your heart cells, was measurable within just 18 months of continuous use. I'll put the full reference in the description below because I want you to be able to verify this yourself. Now, before we go any further, I need you to hear me clearly. I am not telling you to stop your medication without speaking to your physician. What I am telling you is that you deserve to have this conversation with full information, and today I'm going to give you that information. I'm also going to walk you through 5 specific things, ranked from least to most critical, that you can do right now to protect and even rebuild your cardiac muscle health, even if you're already on this medication. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Leave a comment below telling me your age and whether your doctor has ever talked to you about the long-term effects of your cholesterol medication on your heart muscle. I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone, your story matters to me and it might help someone else watching this video today. Now, let me tease something before we get into the countdown. Number 1 on this list, the most powerful cardiac protector I've ever seen in clinical practice, is something that 94% of adults over 65 are chronically deficient in. It's not a drug. It's not a supplement most people think about. And when I started telling my patients about it, I watched hearts, real struggling aging hearts, begin to recover in ways I didn't think were possible. You're going to want to stay until the end for that one. Let's start the countdown at number 5. Number 5 is something I call the silent accelerator of cardiac aging, and it goes by a name most people recognize but few people truly understand: chronic low-grade inflammation. Now, when I say inflammation, I don't mean the kind where your ankle swells after a sprain. I mean a slow, invisible fire that burns inside the arteries and muscle tissue of your heart 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. After the age of 65, your body loses a significant portion of its natural ability to regulate inflammatory cytokines. Those are signaling chemicals that tell your immune system when to attack and when to stand down. In many older adults, that system gets stuck in the on position. Here's where statins enter the picture in a complicated way. Statins do reduce one specific marker of inflammation called C-reactive protein, and for that reason, many doctors believe they are broadly cardioprotective. But a 2021 study from the Cleveland Clinic found that statins simultaneously suppress a protein called CoQ10, coenzyme Q10, which is the fuel your heart muscle cells use to generate energy. Think of CoQ10 like the gasoline inside a delivery truck. The truck might look fine on the outside, might even be driving down the road, but if you're slowly draining the fuel tank, eventually that truck stops moving. After age 70, your body's natural production of CoQ10 drops by nearly 65% compared to your levels at age 30. Add a statin on top of that, and you are compounding a deficit that your heart literally cannot afford. The practical step here is simple but powerful. Talk to your doctor about supplementing with 200 to 400 milligrams of ubiquinol. That's the active, most bioavailable form of CoQ10, taken daily with your largest meal, because it's a fat-soluble nutrient and food helps your body absorb it. Pair it with a small amount of black pepper extract, which studies from the University of Pune showed can increase CoQ10 absorption by up to 30%. This one step alone can begin to address the energy deficit that statins create inside cardiac tissue. And this brings us perfectly to number 4, which is something I call the anabolic collapse, and it may be the most underappreciated crisis in senior health today. Number 4 is the catastrophic loss of cardiac and skeletal muscle mass that accelerates after the age of 65, a condition called sarcopenia. Now, I know that word sounds like it's only about your legs or your arms, but your heart is a muscle too, the most important one you own, and it suffers from the same degenerative process. Research from Tufts University found that adults who are physically inactive lose up to 8% of their muscle mass every single decade after 40, and that rate triples after 70. But here's what's deeply concerning about statin use specifically. A study published in the Journal of Cachexia, Sarcopenia, and Muscle found that long-term statin users were 47% more likely to develop accelerated muscle wasting compared to non-users. 47%. The mechanism is something called anabolic resistance. When you're young, your muscles respond robustly to exercise and protein. After 70, that responsiveness is already declining naturally. Statins appear to further blunt the muscle's ability to receive those growth signals, essentially turning down the volume on the one thing that could be saving your heart. I had a patient, a remarkable woman named Dorothy, 74 years old, from Savannah, Georgia, who came to me after her third visit to the cardiologist in a year. She was exhausted. Her ejection fraction, that's the measure of how effectively your heart pumps blood, had dropped from 58% to 49% in 18 months. She was on a high-dose statin. After a careful, medically supervised protocol that included resistance training 3 days a week and targeted nutritional changes, her ejection fraction climbed back to 55% in 6 months. She told me she felt like she'd gotten 10 years back. The practical takeaway here is resistance training, not heavy weightlifting, but consistent, intentional muscle loading. Even 2 to 3 sessions per week of body weight or light resistance exercise can meaningfully counteract both sarcopenia and the muscle-suppressing effects of statin therapy. Pair your exercise sessions with 25 to 40 g of high-quality protein within 45 minutes of finishing, because that post-exercise window is when your aging muscles are most receptive to rebuilding signals. Now, if you're finding this information valuable, this is the moment I want to ask you to hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. I post new cardiac health content every week, and I promise you every video is designed to give you information that your 15-minute doctor's appointment simply doesn't have time to cover. Subscribing takes 2 seconds, and it may genuinely add years to your life. Let's move to number 3. And this one surprised even me when I first encountered the research. Number 3 is magnesium deficiency, and I believe it is the single most overlooked cardiac emergency hiding in plain sight inside the bodies of statin users over 60. Here's something that isn't taught clearly enough. Statins accelerate the depletion of magnesium at the cellular level, particularly within cardiac myocytes. Those are the specialized cells that make your heart beat. A sweeping review published by researchers at Harvard Medical School analyzed data from over 40,000 adults and found that individuals with the lowest magnesium levels were 52% more likely to experience a major cardiac event than those in the highest quartile. After the age of 65, your kidneys become less efficient at retaining magnesium, so you're already losing ground. Add statin use, add the fact that modern diets are dramatically lower in magnesium than they were 50 years ago due to soil depletion, and you have a perfect storm. Magnesium does something extraordinary for your heart. It regulates the electrical signals that keep your heartbeat rhythmic and controlled. Think of it like the conductor of an orchestra. When magnesium levels drop, the musicians start playing out of sync. Clinically, this shows up as palpitations, arrhythmias, elevated blood pressure, and fatigue that no amount of sleep seems to fix. The recommended therapeutic dose for cardiac support is 300 to 400 milligrams of magnesium glycinate or magnesium taurate daily, both forms that are gentle on the digestive system and have superior cardiac uptake. Take it in the evening, as magnesium also supports deep restorative sleep, which itself is protective for the heart. Pair it with vitamin B6, which acts as a cofactor that helps drive magnesium directly into the cells where it's needed most. Studies at the University of California, Davis showed this combination increased intracellular magnesium levels by up to 40% compared to magnesium alone. Now, we are entering the top two, and I promise you these are the ones you've never heard your doctor discuss at your annual checkup. Number 2 is something I witnessed firsthand transform a patient's cardiovascular health so dramatically that I dedicated an entire chapter of my research to understanding it. It is the therapeutic restoration of nitric oxide production, and if you are over 65 and on a statin, your nitric oxide levels may be dangerously low right now without you knowing it. Nitric oxide is a molecule produced by the inner lining of your blood vessels, the endothelium, and its job is to keep those vessels relaxed, wide open, and flexible. Think of your arteries like garden hoses. Nitric oxide is what keeps the hose soft and pliable. When nitric oxide production drops, those hoses stiffen and narrow. Your heart has to pump harder to push blood through, and the pressure builds. After age 75, your body loses approximately 35% of its nitric oxide production capacity compared to your levels at 50. Statins, paradoxically, can further impair nitric oxide synthesis by interfering with a specific enzymatic pathway involving tetrahydrobiopterin. I know that's a mouthful, so just remember it as the fuel your blood vessel walls need to make this critical molecule. I treated a man named Raymond, 71, from Phoenix, Arizona, who came to me with blood pressure that had been stubbornly resistant to 3 different medications. His cardiologist was considering adding a 4th. When I looked at his full clinical picture, statin for 9 years, minimal vegetable intake, sedentary lifestyle, the nitric oxide deficiency was screaming at me from the chart. We introduced a targeted dietary protocol emphasizing beetroot, arugula, and dark leafy greens, which are among the richest dietary sources of nitrates that your body converts to nitric oxide. Within 8 weeks, Raymond's systolic blood pressure had dropped by 19 points. His cardiologist reduced 1 medication. Raymond cried at that appointment. He told me he hadn't felt that good since his 60s. To practically restore nitric oxide, consume nitrate-rich foods daily. Beetroot juice, arugula, spinach, and celery are your most potent sources. You can also supplement with 500 milligrams of L-citrulline twice daily, which research from the University of Texas found to be more effective than L-arginine at sustaining nitric oxide levels in the bloodstream. Critically, avoid using mouthwash immediately before or after eating nitrate-rich foods because the bacteria in your mouth are an essential part of the nitric oxide conversion process, and mouthwash kills them indiscriminately. This is a detail almost nobody tells you, and it matters enormously. And now, number 1, the cardiac protector that I promised you at the beginning of this video, the one that 94% of adults over 65 are deficient in, the one I've watched change lives, change cardiac function tests, change prognoses that looked bleak. Number 1 is vitamin D3 combined specifically with vitamin K2, and the interaction between this pair and statin-induced cardiac damage is one of the most important emerging areas of cardiovascular medicine today. Let me explain why this matters so profoundly. Vitamin D receptors exist on every single cardiac cell in your body. They regulate inflammation within heart tissue, they support the structural integrity of the ventricular walls, and they modulate calcium handling inside the cardiac muscle, calcium being the mineral that literally triggers every heartbeat. A 2022 meta-analysis published in the European Heart Journal, which pooled data from 27 separate clinical trials involving over 83,000 participants, found that adults with vitamin D levels below 20 nung per ml, which is classified as deficient, had a 64% higher risk of heart failure compared to those with optimal levels. 64%. And the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey data shows that nearly 94% of Americans over 65 fall into that deficient range. These are not obscure statistics. This is a public health emergency hiding in plain sight. Now here is where statins create a devastating compound problem. Statin medications interfere with the same biochemical pathway, the mevalonate pathway, that your body uses not only to produce cholesterol, but also to produce vitamin D3 precursors and CoQ10. So a single medication is simultaneously depleting three of the most critical cardiac nutrients your aging body depends on. This is not a conspiracy. This is established biochemistry, and it is why I believe every patient over 60 on a statin should be having a comprehensive vitamin D and CoQ10 panel run at minimum twice per year. The reason vitamin K2 is so essential as a partner to vitamin D3 is that vitamin D increases calcium absorption from your gut, which is protective for your bones, but without K2, that calcium can end up depositing in your arterial walls instead of in your bones, a process called arterial calcification that directly stiffens the heart's blood supply vessels. K2 acts like a traffic director, routing the calcium to where it belongs. Think of vitamin D as the door, and vitamin K2 as the guide that walks the calcium through the right door. For adults over 65, the therapeutic dose supported by current research is 4,000 to 5,000 IU of vitamin D3 daily paired with 100 to 200 micrograms of menaquinone 7, that's MK7, the most bioavailable form of K2. Take both with your fattiest meal of the day because they are fat-soluble and require dietary fat for absorption. Get your blood levels tested. You're looking for a serum 25-hydroxy vitamin D level between 50 and 80 yen per ml for optimal cardiac protection. Pair this combination with omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, at a combined dose of 2 to 3 g daily, and you create a synergistic, anti-inflammatory, pro-cardiac environment that can begin to reverse the mitochondrial damage that statin therapy accelerates. Studies from the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm showed that this three-way combination, D3, K2, and omega-3, reduced markers of cardiac inflammation by 41% in statin users over a 12-week period. I want you to hear something important right now as we bring this together. You are not too old. Your heart is not too far gone. I have stood in the operating room and held hearts that looked beyond saving, and I have watched them recover. I have sat across the desk from men and women in their late 70s and 80s who had been told their best years were behind them, and I have watched them walk out of my office 6 months later with more energy, more clarity, and more independence than they'd had in a decade. The science of cardiac recovery in aging adults is one of the most hopeful frontiers in medicine right now, but only if you have access to the right information. The 5 things we discussed today: addressing CoQ10 depletion, fighting sarcopenia with resistance training, restoring nitric oxide, correcting magnesium deficiency, and fixing the devastating D3 and K2 deficiency, are not alternative medicine. They are evidence-based, research-supported interventions that deserve to be part of every conversation between a doctor and a patient over 60 who is on a statin. You deserve that conversation. You deserve to walk to your mailbox without getting winded. You deserve to play with your grandchildren without your heart pounding in your ears. You deserve to wake up in the morning feeling like your body is working with you, not against you. And it is never too late to start. Please share this video with someone you love who is over 60 and on a cholesterol medication. It might be the most important thing you do for them this year. All of the scientific studies referenced today are linked in the description below. I encourage you to bring them to your next doctor's appointment and have this conversation directly. If you're new here, subscribe right now. I release new cardiac and longevity content every single week, and every video is built on the same promise: real science, real language, real results for real people. And before you go, leave me a comment. Tell me your age. Tell me if you or someone you love is on a statin. And tell me, has any doctor ever talked to you about CoQ10 or vitamin D in relation to your heart? I want to know. I read everyone. I'll see you in the next video.